Hello everyone. Today we're going to be introducing an assignment that has to do with op art or optical illusion art. We are going to be making forms that look something like this, using line as our element of art that we are focusing on, and a little bit of value to show that three-dimensionality between each one of our small forms. We're going to be starting on a small half sheet of paper, and make sure you always start in pencil first. Just to make it a little bit easier to see on screen, I'm going to be using pen, but of course always start in pencil in case you make a mistake and you need to go back and fix it. The first step that we're going to be doing is creating a curved line. Now we don't want it to be super wavy. It should have a little bit of a wave to it, and we can put it in the center of the paper. We can put it a little bit towards the top or a little bit towards the bottom. Ultimately, it's just going to be dividing the paper into two sections. So whichever way you like it to look is how you want to set it up. I'm just going to start by putting mine in the center, and again from the left side of the paper moving to the right, I'm just going to create a curved line. So that is step number one. Step number two is we're going to be putting some reference dots on our line. I would say to stay between 5 to 7 dots. I wouldn't do any more of that because the more dots you add, the more curved lines that you have to add, and that's just going to be very taxing at the end. So I would stay between 5 and 6 dots, and you want to make sure they're a little bit spread apart on your line. So don't put them too close together because we want a little bit of space so we can make some wide curves. And I'm just going to go ahead and put 6 dots on my line. Again, they don't have to be very large. They're only to reference back where we're going to be adding to our drawing. So don't make them too large. They're just for your knowledge. So that is step number 2, adding dots to our line. Step number 3 is where we're going to start creating our curved lines. So I'm just going to go to the left of the paper, start at the very edge, and I'm just going to make a curved line that goes down and meets the first dot that I made. From there, I'm going to make another curved line from the first dot to the second dot. And I'm just going to continue that same step, creating a curved line from dot to dot until I get to the very edge of my paper. So that is our third step, just making our curved lines. Now you want to keep your curved lines about this size. If we go too small, when you go back to create or put in the value, it's going to be a little bit difficult, because the smaller something is, the harder it is to show detail. So I would keep them, this is a fairly good size. If you want to make them a little bit larger, that's fine. And we're going to go ahead and put in a second layer of curved lines. So the steps after this, after step 3, are really just layering the curves until we get to the top of our paper. You'll notice that I'm not going all the way down to the dot. I'm just going to wherever the line meets the curve on the other side. Some of them can be larger, some of them can be smaller. Creating variety is going to make it look a little bit more interesting. But ultimately, we're just going to be layering those curves one after the other until we get to the top of our page. Now there are ways that we can make the curves appear as if they are moving from either the left side of the page or the right side of the page. And to do that, we're just going to change where the curve starts and ends. So let's say with this section here, if I want it to go to the left of my paper, instead of starting at the very edge here or the very edge here, I'm going to start a little bit up on the right-hand side of this curve. And I'm just going to create a curved line that goes this way. The more I put it towards the top of the curve, and follow it back to the line, the more it's going to appear as if it's moving to one direction. And I'm just going to keep continuing that step. Okay, you'll notice I'm not going all the way down to where this last line is. I'm kind of ending a little bit higher, and that's what helps us make it look as if the direction is going to the left side of the paper. And I'm just going to continue that all the way up until I reach the edge of the paper. There we go. Now, in the same way, if I wanted this section to go to the right-hand side of the paper, I just do the same step as the left, but I switch the directions. So instead of starting down here, I'm going to start a little bit higher up on this curve. Starting from that point, I'm going to create my curve and then have it move towards the right-hand side of the paper. Again, I don't want my curves to be too small, so I want to make sure the amount of space that I have is fairly large because that's going to help when it comes to the shading portion. Make it a little bit easier to see. But I'm just going to keep repeating that step until all of my sections have moved to the top of the paper. Once we finish that step, it may look something similar to this. Okay, so once you have all of your sections going to the top of the paper, that's when we start doing the section with the shading. Now, whether you're working with a colored pencil or a regular pencil, the process of shading is still the same. So I'm going to start by practicing with my pencil first, and I'm going to start at the very corners of each individual space. I'm going to push down on my pencil to get a darker value. And as I slowly start taking pressure off of my pencil, I'm going to create a medium value. And then eventually I'm just going to let the pencil slide across the paper to create a very light value. You'll notice that when I'm shading, I'm not going straight up and down, but I'm moving my pencil with the curve. So that's very important. Anytime we're shading in an object or a shape, we want to make sure that we're moving or kind of mimicking the shape of the object that we're shading. So because this is a rounded shape, we want to make sure that when we shade it, our shading is also rounded and matches with that curve. So I'm going to go in again on the opposite side. I'm going to push down on my pencil to get a darker value. And as I start moving towards the center, my value is going to get lighter and lighter. And you'll notice that I'm not letting the shadows or the values touch. So I'm going towards the center, but I'm not filling in the center because we want to leave the center the white of the paper. That's what's going to show or create our highlight. Now, if we want to use colored pencil, it's really just the same process. I'm going to start at the edges or the corners. I'm going to push down on my pencil to create a dark value. I'm going to slowly start taking pressure off of my pencil to create a medium value. And as I move towards the center, it's going to be the lightest value. So although this assignment has mainly to do with lines, okay, that's the element of art that we're focusing on, value is going to be very important in just showing the optical illusion or the idea of movement happening within our artwork. Okay, again, as I move towards the center with my colored pencil, I'm going to leave it the white of the paper. So I have my white or my highlight, a light, medium, and dark section. And I'm just going to continue this step all the way until each one of my sections is filled with color or value if I'm working with the pencil. At the end, you should see something that looks a little bit more complete and finished.